Well, it's really thanks to my former fiance. She's British, and there's a whole story regarding that, how we met. Um, she was prophesized by a medium that I went to back like early, like mid 2000s, and it's really thanks to her. She turned out to be a child gray abductee. So growing up, I'm a child of the 70s, so I don't really know about anything about ETs. So the first time we met up, well, let me get back to how like she was prophesied. So I knew I felt I was getting sick, and um, and my mom said, "Why don't you go see this medium? I heard she's really good." And I wasn't really into that back in the day. I used to I used to lift weights, so my ego was really high and totally a different person from who I am now. So I go to this medium and she asks me questions and she's looking beside me and she's like somebody was beside me and as if she was communicating with somebody. And she almost had her eyes were like really watery. And like long story short, at the end of the whole seance, she says, "Well, you're going to meet up with somebody." And in like a year and a half max, and her hair is going to be, and she was doing this. Her hair is going to be here. And I thought, okay, so like for, and like she's going to have blonde hair. So like for like during the entire time between our meeting and that seance, each time I was with somebody, a female, well, she didn't really match the what she described. But one day I had to go to Walmart's at lunchtime and to buy something. And out of the blue, I see an old friend, and he was waiting somebody. So we start talking about the good old days, and this sort of beautiful, angelic type of lady, blonde hair with long hair, comes up to us. And I was looking to and fro, expecting somebody to come, but in fact, the person that he was waiting for was her. And she starts talking, and this beautiful English voice comes out of that, this beautiful angel, and like a very like noble type of voice. And from that moment on, like I fell in love with her. And so we talked for about half an hour, and I have to go back to work. So like a few days later, she emails me, and she says that I was a starseed, and I had no idea what starseeds were.
Now, what
And
what date are we talking here? In '70s? Sorry, is
so
that
this would
'70s?
be we met in 2012.
All right. Okay. So this is yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's fairly not too long ago. And yeah, I was around like 39, 40-ish, perhaps. So she starts talking about all the alien stuff and how she's a great child abductee. Her mom used to date Ozzy Osbourne, and she did share with me a few funny anecdotes when Ozzy came over. But um,
So
oh,
continue. I mean, how did you get sort of this rise to fame so quickly and being at conferences and
well, it's really
meeting the
thanks to
great
experience.
Richard Dolan?
Yeah.
I used to walk around Leeds in the north of England with him, just trying to find a pub, and he always seemed to know where they were during the exopolitics conferences.
Some people have latent talents for sure. Um,
Are you suggesting that Richard Dolan has no talent except finding English
no,
pubs in the north of England?
no, I love the guy.
Are you suggesting that?
Um, now, well, having gone to this, being a speaker at Experiencer Speak really pushed me to get more involved. And there was again the whole promotion of the event. So I started going on these radio shows.
Sorry, could you repeat the name of the event?
Experiencer Speak, that was my first
Okay.
one.
Yeah.
The event which brought me to appear on Misha Johnson's show. Um,
Yes, she is a very, very wonderful, courageous woman. I have a lot of time for Misha.
Very lovely lady. I had her on my show twice, and which eventually brought me to other shows, and which eventually brought me to Lorian Fenton's show.
Yeah, Lorian is a great, great woman. Been through hell, been pulled through hedges backwards, not not a great thing, but she put on some very, very leading cutting edge conferences, and I was very privileged to be invited to two of them, the Super Soldier Summit 1 and Super Soldier Summit 2. I was actively prevented from going to the first one, and the second one we were all abducted and a whole pile of stuff happened, and I don't think a third one happened after that.
Well, she eventually started doing UFO Con.
Yes, that was was it 2019?
Well,
it was MegaCon.
yeah, but now she's I think that's a bit different. UFO Con's in San Francisco, and she invited me to be a speaker at the 2021 event.
Right. Is I think San Francisco is where she lives now.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But that year I was supposed to fly down, but because of COVID, the venue had they couldn't allow like an X amount of people or a maximum amount of people because of COVID, and so she had to put everything on Zoom, whatever system she used. But yeah, the whole thing was online that year. So we didn't growing up in the 70s, we didn't hear anything about ET. So, but I would tell my mother that at night that there were people in my bedroom. I don't remember seeing them, but the fear was there enough for me to sleep with my entire body against the wall. So this was at the age of 2.5 and 3. Telling your mom each night there's people in my bedroom. Eventually, you're growing up, you put this off as the childhood fear of the dark. But I was afraid of the door opening, the closet, underneath the bed, the windows.
Did you need the lights on?
No, my mother always closed it.
Yeah, I had to. It's a secret. I couldn't go to sleep unless the whole light was on.
Yeah, well, I was so afraid looking behind me, so I had to sleep with my entire body against the wall like a plank, or sometimes in a fetal position. And I slept like that up until the age of 11. One time, eventually my brother was born, so I was 4 years old, and so I switched rooms, and this would be I would call this a screen image, which took me years to figure out because I would put this off as my first nightmare ever. I woke up in bed, and at the end of my bed, at the foot of the bed, I was seeing a 3-foot tall boxing glove doing this, like standing but doing this, and the air was palpable, like something was off in the air, like it was thick, and like a surreal type of energy. And I felt that was important, but I didn't know what it meant until recently. This year, I had somebody on my show, which told me an experience where she was describing the same thing, but she would call it UFO fog. And
yeah, we would experience that in the Irish border. We call it the Monaghan mists. There was things would happen. A lot of stuff there were magnetic anomalies and stuff in the air, but that was all happening. But
so the boxing glove I suspect was a small gray, but I put that off as just like my first childhood nightmare. But anyhow, I grew up with a weird mark, maybe like an inch above my left kneecap.
Explain the marks. Go into the details.
As a young boy, I didn't send it to you, but I could. The thing is, so imagine you're like 2.5, 3 years old, Caucasian, no body hair whatsoever, small chubby legs, and then you got this mark that I thought was a small piece of rock trapped underneath the skin. But it doesn't make sense because if it was something foreign, the body would have pushed it out through pus. It would have been swollen, but it was always there. But you touch it, but you didn't feel anything. But it didn't look like a normal brown spot, let's say. Just great thing.
I mean, now I'm going to say it wasn't just maybe a chip of wood or something that had got embedded and just grown over or something like that.
Well, it would have been thrown out eventually, but it's still there. And when you look at it, it looks like a triangle a bit. And I compared it to Byron Lacey, a great contactee. And he had one like a divot, a skin sample, but he had one on his arm, on his hand, and it really looks like exactly like that. But again, it could be anything, but it doesn't look normal, let's say.
Later on, I'd like you to go back to the original reason you were contacted by this English lady. I think that's very important.
Who?
The English woman,
The meeting.
the meeting, yeah. But
Yeah. Okay. So like I said, I met her at Walmart's. She had to go back to the UK. She did like a small trip. So I didn't think that she was the one really, because she had long hair, but she was supposed to have like ear height, like ear
what do you
hair.
mean supposed to have?
Well, she was doing this, remember? The medium? You're gonna meet up with a blonde lady and her hair is gonna be here. When I met her at Walmart's, her hair was like below the shoulders. So
Was
she
she
goes
wearing a
away.
wig? I don't
She was
understand this about the hair.
the medium said you're gonna meet somebody with ear height hair. You're gonna like you're
Okay,
gonna be
sorry.
okay. You're gonna date the experiencer I met was her hair was below the shoulder, so like two different people with two lengths of hair different. So she and also the medium said to take your time with her, which I didn't know why. But the thing is, the my soon to be fiance, the British lady, went back to the UK and she did like a small trip around the world. She went to India and stuff like that. Eventually, she came back to Canada, and her hair was ear height this time. The reason why is in India, the local the monkeys there would jump on her and would play around with her hair. So it fucked it up. So she had to get her hair cut. And so from that moment on, so she stayed at my place. The first night we did a C5. For the first time in my life, I realized that satellites moved in orbit. I had no idea. I thought everything was stagnant, not moving. The second night, we started doing a C5. 45 minutes in. So we did the rear Dr. Greer protocol. I'm not sure if you're aware of that.
Yeah.
He has his own app, but
That's
we
based.
did,
It's based on the Alan Hynek protocols. I'm not happy with what Greer gets people to do doing a CE 5 and 6. I do not approve of it.
But we
I
would do
just take extreme care on that.
Yeah. Well, after like 45 minutes in this, so again, you have to remember that she's a great contactee as well. So we're together and we do this C5, 45 minutes in, coming in diagonally from our backs to where we're looking at in front of because I'm on my front lawn looking on the other side of the street in the sky, and beautiful night sky, starry night, and no moonlight whatsoever, and this about 10 feet wide, roundish orb or elongated orb or like a roundish watermelon, 10 feet wide, orange red, comes in and it flies just maybe 40, 50 feet above the power lines. The whole thing lasted a minute, and everybody. So this was in August of 2013, mid-August, and everybody was outside. Nobody saw it except us, and it flew. Nice flyby, no sound whatsoever. So that was my first UFO. A week later,
Sorry, when you say nobody saw it except us, it's just you and your partner, or what?
Everybody was outside. The neighbor and his kids were outside. This was in August, but it was the temperature was fairly good at that time, and so this was about around 9 something at night, and so So the whole thing lasted a minute, and it just flew above.
I mean,
the
it's
power
important.
line.
Did they not see
They didn't.
what you saw?
They didn't see it.
They
Nobody
couldn't find it.
realized
Did you tell them about it?
No, I didn't.
All right. Okay.
No.
It's very important because some perceptions are only there for those who are being allowed to see them.
That's what I think. Because imagine at 9 something o'clock, see something as big as the sun just above the power lines over the houses. Like somebody would see that, right? Nobody saw it. And So I thought this thing was common. I thought it was like I was super hyped. So my friend had to go somewhere else for a few days, and so the weekend after I go at my parents' house. They had which I sent you the photos for that. Um, at my parents' house, I do a C5 on my own. So I go back to my parents' house, do a C5. About an hour in, nothing's happening. So I was just walking around the house and doing the same chants. And so this is a lake by a house by the lake, and you got like pine trees all around it, and the mosquitoes were there. So that's why I was walking around and just trying to keep ahead of myself of not being like eaten up. And so about an hour in, I decided to take a break, go inside the house, and speak with my folks. And so I go back out maybe 5 minutes later, and as soon as I stepped off the front patio, I get the feeling to look up. And as soon as I look up, the same UFO flies overhead, just above the trees. And seeing it, I'm amazed again. I'm in awe. And well, of course, there's no fear. And I get the impression, go inside and get your folks. So I run back inside. My mother, more into angels and stuff like that, comes out fairly quickly. She sees the UFO when it's a bit, because it was doing a flyby. And so my mom sees it. A few moments later, then my dad comes out. He's more down to earth, not really into this. And so both of them saw the UFO at different intervals. And so from that moment on, my father started having contact. He maybe 2 months later, he had a bad cold. We were sleeping downstairs in the guest bedroom, and as soon as he wakes up during the night, a 4-inch golden orb comes in through the bedroom window from outside into the bedroom. Does a flyby to and fro from one end of the room to the other, and then comes out. He tried to grab it. It either went through his hand or above it. He doesn't remember, but it had this weird wonky energy moving around in it. He started having shadow beings, body taps like I would, and sometimes voices. And eventually my mom passed away, but he moved to where I am now in the same city. And he calls up, and he had what I told him was a screen image. He had a weird looking clown appear in his bedroom.
Oh, that's very MK Ultra stuff. Alice in Wonderland stuff.
Yeah.
McDonald's stuff. Or do you think that?
I think it was a great just
interfere
portraying
with your perceptions.
Yeah, but he had nothing bad happen because of it. But so that's his contact, let's say, so far. My mom, before dying, had in a dream, a reptilian and a sort of like a Nordic appeared to her. She couldn't explain what the reptilian was, but she felt very afraid from it, and he had like weird leathery skin.
Are you able to go into further detail on what she perceived?
Who perceived?
Your mother.
No, she only said that she was so afraid when she got into the Nordic was, I think it was either walking on water and was doing this weird hand gesture to her, but all that she remembered was she was really afraid of the reptilian.
Was that at the same time?
Not too long. I can't recall if it was after or before. I did buy her like Barbara Marcinek's book on the Pleiades, and
explain what that book is. I think it's, if you could let people know.
It's about the Earth, the Living Library. I can't remember the whole, because she read it. I did read parts of it. At least I listened to the audiobook, but regarding how like Earth's history, that there were wars in the beginning of time regarding Earth and humans on it. And still a fascinating book. But my mom thought it was a bit like an easy read, but it is still an interesting story, which relates to a lot of what I'm hearing, because I had a guest on called Yesenia de Capua, originally from South America. Now she's in the US, but she recalls a prior lifetime during those events where she would come to Earth on a ship and be part of the war to protect Earth. She actually died on the planet, but she remembers coming down to the planet with another friend of hers as a team with like guns to battle reptilians. and she died on the planet. So this is the fun part about learning about other experiencers, but also be able to corroborate authors that you thought that might have, because there's a lot of like goofballs out there. I don't think that.
What?
Yeah, well,
Don't talk about the Committee on UAPs in
yeah,
Washington or wherever it was. Don't say that.
but I
That's
don't.
a terrible thing.
Yeah, some of them are hard to believe, but when you start
They're all public
corroborating,
services, servants, they have to, they pull up government salary, hardworking people, just
I know,
shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that. And you
but
certainly didn't.
yeah, but yeah, you do realize that other stories are actually true, and a lot of them resonate with what I've been going
I think
through.
that's
But
very important from my experience because I've seen certain publications, and when you see 5 or 6 people go through a publication, and that's what I saw, and then another one said, "Well, yeah, and where this is drawn, I've been in a similar place in a craft," and that is, random people, completely different, seeing similar things, and then I find that autistic children are able to draw very good pictures of other beings with very good accuracy. So I think that's why they want more artistic children in certain businesses and industries.
oh, you do have to keep an open mind.
Absolutely.
And this is why I don't try to judge non-experiencers, because if you haven't read the books, you haven't met the people, then and if you've never had the chance to have these experiences, it's hard to believe. And even for me, being in this, certain stories are hard to believe until you meet somebody else totally not associated with that person, and they corroborate the same
Yeah.
event.
Well, personally, I do not like the X-Files thing. If believe that's outsourcing your cognitive perception and logic or any kind of reasoning. I'd say just record, see, and understand. Don't even try to understand. Just try to remember what you're experiencing. And if you're going to take a picture, for God's sake, use the phone this way, not this way. So you get a wide perception. You see relative other objects which can help corroborate what you've got. Just getting a blurry reflected image on a phone. That's my advice. Be quiet now.
Yeah.
Continue.
Well, so yeah, so my dad started having contact, and eventually, well, the girl I met, the British bird, let's say, we started dating. So the entire time that she was at my place, we started having these weird events. Well, prior to that, in 2009, I bought myself a new house, and I started. Even before that, a year or two before, but I think this is in 2007. I was on my own, and I woke up when I was dating a girl called Veronica at the time, and I woke up with the face of, which eventually turns out to be a gray. I had the face of a gray hovering over my bed, and it was semi-transparent. So once, like July morning, I wake up and normally I sleep on my stomach. Child of the 70s, we'd sleep on our stomachs, and this time I'm on my back, and I'm just looking around the room, the bedroom. The blinds were open to have, like, because of the airflow. It was really hot, so I was just looking around, and then I realized there's something weird, just maybe like floating above my bed. So I take time to look at it, and I see this black outline. So I trace it, and I realize that it's a face. So I start concentrating in the face, and I'm seeing these really two big round eyes at the top of the head with a very long, like a long pointy chin. I did send you the photo. It's called, there's actually two. It's called Mr. Gray, and the other one's Gray Comparison. And so that's exactly what I saw. I saw through it. I only saw the outlines, and the outlines that the eyes were black, but they were see-through. And so I saw that, and for some reason I was super relaxed. And eventually, like after looking at it for 30 seconds, I get the feeling to hug my girlfriend, fall back asleep, like nothing happened. A few months later, in that same bedroom, I was sleeping, and I hear maybe an inch away from my ear, you hear the voice of a lady. say that you're going to be an uncle and your parents' grandparents. I called my mom the next day. I thought somebody was in the bedroom, so I turned the lights on. Nobody was there. Veronica was still sleeping. Fall back asleep, tell my mom that the story the next day, totally forget about it. 3 months after, almost to the day, my brother calls up and tells me that if I felt old. And I thought, that's a weird question. And he says, well, you're going to be an uncle. I was like, yay. I was super happy for him, but I totally forgot about the story. So I called my mom. And that's when my mom tells me, remember that voice that told you about the coming of a baby? And that's when my jaw dropped. That, oh my God, that actually happened. So from that moment on, there's this sort of like female entity that's watching over me, like what we'd call a guide, an angel perhaps, which I'll get into.
I think Steve Mera here in the UK has presented a very important presentation a couple of years ago, where the separation of aliens, UFOs, angels, demons, the fairy, indigenous peoples of the earth in different domains, that's all been separated. I think if we look at it in the round, in a much closer, a lot of things will make a much more sense. I think there's been some very good work done on that by Barry Fitzgerald in the communities on this side of the Atlantic.
Yeah, I've met Steve, good guy. Him and Jackie, I believe. We had dinner. Yeah, so eventually, me and Veronica, we break up, and I buy myself a house. So that's where the UFO came over. So in that house, I started getting body taps at night. This is prior to meeting the British contactee. So I would get body taps at night, sometimes twice during the night, just to wake up. And my trash bin would start to open and close at night. And so we started dating, and the energies were high in the house, and she even heard the trash bin open. She said, "What was that?" I said, "Don't worry, it's just a trash bin." One night, this is December of 2013, we go to bed. Because of the cold, this is, of course, northern Quebec, Canada, like minus 30 something degrees. And I tend to wake up a lot to go to the bathroom because of the cold. So one night I wake up. Was it because I wanted to go to the bathroom, or was I expecting, or did I feel something there? I wake up, and in the drawing that I sent you called Shadow Beings, my bedroom bed was right beside the doorway. Yep. So my bed's right beside the doorway, and I'm sleeping on my left side, so I'm facing the doorway. Right, maybe 2 feet in front of me, I'm seeing in the doorway itself. At first, well, I called it a disc. So it was floating in the doorway. I felt it looked like matte gray. It could have been like black, but it looked like more matte gray, and nothing was holding it in place. So my brain registered it as matte gray. Nothing was holding it in place. Was about maybe 5.5 inches long, maybe 3.5 wide, and it was 2D. The actual disc was 2D. So no width to it. And I eventually found out it's probably a portal. I'll get into that. But as soon as I saw that, I panic. I jump up, flip the switch on. The disc or portal disappears. And this is the fascinating part. As soon as I flip the switch on, my fiance wakes up in a jolt, in a panic, saying, "What's going on? What's going on?" So I tell her the story about what I'm seeing, the portal, and she says, "No, I'm not waking up because of you. A man was telling her telepathically while she slept the word EMP, electromagnetic pulse, nonstop, EMP, EMP, and that's what woke her up." So we knew these two events were related, really. So we were panicky, didn't know what was going on. So it takes a good half an hour before we fall back asleep. Now, I suspect maybe an hour after that, I get the feeling there's movement coming in through from where the portal was. And because I'm sleeping on my left side and I'm looking at the floor. And I think I'm feeling like movement coming in. I black out. This time I wake up. I'm facing my fiance, so I'm on my right side, and I'm super drugged up. Drugged up, like waking up from anesthesia. Uh, I didn't have my glasses on, of course, but my eyesight's good enough to see without them. And there, my bedroom doorway was open. The curtains in the living room was open, so there was enough moonlight and lamplight from outside coming in to the living room into my bedroom that I was able to see. So in that drugged up state, facing my fiance, I'm seeing in front of the bed and on her side of the bed, at least five, 6 feet tall, very broad shouldered shadow beings. So imagine seeing an American football player, only seeing the silhouette, a black silhouette. And it's moving in front of the bed on her side of the bed. And where a neck would be, I'm not seeing any neck. I'm seeing this very big, rounded, disproportionately big helmet laying on their shoulders, and they're moving about, and they're all the same. They're all identical, and they're black and they're see-through. They're blacker than the night, but transparent enough that I could see through them. And why I'm saying there's at least 6 feet tall, because I'm 6 feet tall, and the top of my closets are on 6 feet tall. And so in that drugged up state, I'm able to raise my hand and say hi. As soon as I do that, I black out. I suspect there's missing time. I wake up and I realize I'm looking towards the floor in a zombie state, let's say. I'm wearing hospital robes and I'm barefoot. So I'm probably naked underneath the robes. And I black out. Wake up the next morning. Misha Johnston believes it could have been my lab. And through my own research and having my own guests on, that they say like shadow beings are really like just entities in between two realms, and that's how they could travel about. But yeah, so that's what happened for that event.
Promote your website. Aha.
Do you see anything?
Okay.
All right. So this is my channel, Experience Your Interviews. So we've got 2.6 thousand subs so far. I'm heading on to my 5th year, and we have really amazing guests from around the world. So, of course, there's always the language barrier.
Is that because you speak French Canadian?
Yeah, no. I only do English-speaking guests, but yeah, so like Nathaniel Tafoya, he's got an amazing story, and they he had one event where I think like ETs were using this sort of technology to spy on his main front door, and there's a small video of that. And Polly Rotterman, really interesting story that she's from South America now living in Israel. Another fascinating story where it's as if she was like astrally contacted by ETs every time she was in her ovulation period, and she would appear in front of this sort of group. Like the first event, she appeared in front of she was in a desert, red sand, a bit like let's say on Mars, and a young boy would appear from afar. So she went up to him, and the boy had like abnormally large eyes and seemed to be gliding. And she's with him. He brought her to a tent, but in fact, the tent in the middle of nowhere was actually a UFO ship. Because as soon as she entered that tent, a small tent, mind you, everything was huge inside. So you've got this sort of spatial geometry type of thing, small on the outside, big on the inside happening.
Yeah, it's interesting how the BBC got that idea for Doctor Who.
Yeah. Like, yeah, drip, drip. So yeah, and that area, a whole bunch of people, a lot of women were giving, they were in various stages of birth. So she was brought there to help out, and there was a mantis just watching over everyone. And then Step Talk again, she's well known. Barbara Eberhardt, a German lovely lady, amazing story regarding the hybridization program. And Jeff Selver, probably Canada's biggest contactee ever. Thanks to my mentor, he contacted me, or I contacted him, whatever. And his contacts started off at a young age, but again, like so many of us, he started remembering his very late in life because he had these sort of mind blocks. And what he would say, I've got his book too. We're going to meet up eventually, but his contacts, he would he would talk about having like two personas, the human persona and the one that knows the grays. So as soon as he would come back, the original human persona would kick in, the human filter. As soon as the grays would appear before him, that's when the he who knows them comes back. So the one without fear and the one with fear. And he had trouble like sort of understanding both, connecting both. But it was all in the plan, and he has this sort of elder gray that would watch him throughout this whole evolution. And he, on board the craft, he would receive a lot of training. He was shown his future, and he was guided to move around through Canada and to eventually come back to where he is now. Fascinating story. He would talk about the Gray's plan for humanity. Now the Grays, his Grays say that they were the progenitors, or the ones that made humanity. So that's his story. I believe him. And now, like this one is part 2, so I'm having him on for a part 3 to finish his book. So that's how big his story is. He he saw hybrids and all that, a whole bunch of types of ETs. So he was taught in telepathy and a whole bunch of other stuff. And because of the nuclear program in the U.S., that's where eventually the Greys had to butt in, let's say, because on our own we have a tendency to sort of like self-destruct, and they're afraid for the planet. So that's why the whole hybridization thing comes into play, to bring in more of them into us, and eventually they want to create an enlightened city in central of North America. During a time where the U.S. doesn't exist anymore, there's going to be fractured states. So I've heard this a lot. So there's going to be an enlightened city of hybrids, and that city with more alien technology. And you're going to have to be enlightened or conscious-wise enough to be able to use that tech. So only humans that were, I can't say upgraded, but they have this sort of more conscious awareness, they're going to be able to interact with that type of tech. So eventually, through centuries, let's say, well, we're going to sort of interbreed. So that's going to help sort of upgrade humanity. So his story is fascinating, and so on and so on. I've got so many people. Steve Neal.
Keep going, but this is fascinating.
Yeah, and of course, if you want certain people on, I could, of course, help you with contacting them. Caspian, again, an amazing story from Britain. He also lived, I think, in Australia, but yeah, he's still in the UK. Fascinating guy. Steve, he worked on Ghostbusters, and he works on Star Trek. I think the motion picture 1 and 2, perhaps. Another fascinating story regarding the Greys. He's good friends with Whitley Strieber, and so on and so forth. Sean,
I see you've got a very good friend of mine called Dana Louise.
So I've got not sure how many. I've got like maybe 130 videos so far, and again, Robert Hulse from the UK. Not sure if you know him. Another fascinating story. Yeah, Michael Cameron. I think he knows about you. Yeah. So It's been a fascinating experience so far. I'm going to stop sharing there, but yeah, I could go
Well, I
on
think
for.
that's. Oh, I think you've got something in front
Oh,
now.
there you go. Sorry, my camera. Okay.
Oh, right. Well, I think that's absolutely fantastic. I'm very impressed. I am very happy that you're drawn to do this. It's very important that this kind of thing happens all the time, and you're doing it. And I am very. It's. I mean, I'm getting a bit on the old sort of long of the tooth, as they say. So it's very important that we have people like you doing that. And you've got a great website. But I do caution that you do have backups building on other platforms, because when it happens, you're gone. And it's happened to a lot of people. And to be perfectly technically blunt, have you got everything on hard drives?
I do back up everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, make sure that you keep those hard drives working and have a backup of the hard drives, because they do go wrong. But the important thing is that if they do go wrong, you can recover them. Once something's on a magnetic disc, what happens is the heads fail, or they get stuck like a record. It's just another record player. It's flying around at 7,000 RPM. And they can be recovered. So if you do have a drive that fails for one reason or another, they can be recovered. They may cost a lot to do that. I managed to get about 10 or 12 drives recovered from some of the earlier stuff. And that's about $1,000 each one. But the idea is to keep it in different places and all that sort of stuff. But I think it's absolutely amazing. Are there any sort of last things you'd like to say to sort of point people to where you are, and if people have seen this, and how do they get hold of you and all that kind of thing?
Well, there's an email. I've got a Gmail associated with my YouTube account. So when you click on About, you can access that. But
well, tell us about it now.
Yeah,
sorry, excuse me.
No,
tell us
right.
about it now.
The email's named experiencer.interviews, plural, at
Could you say that again?
gmail.com.
I'll put it up. Yeah.
Experiencer.interviews@gmail.com.
Okay, that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I did send you an email with all the photos, so you could use that. And so if people want to reach out to me, it's through that email. And if they want to come on my show, I'll be more than happy to have them on. And I'm always happy to get more people from the UK, from Europe.
Well, I think we've got there's quite a lot of people in the UK. We're not too well served here. I do the UFO thing occasionally, but a lot of the stuff that we're doing here we're heading very, very choppy waters here now.
Oh, you and Joanne have been doing like an amazing work so far.
Oh,
so
with Joanne?
Sorry?
Joanna?
Yeah, Joanne, yeah.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Yeah.
We had a big hissy fit and a tantrum, but I mean, she's doing her thing and she's beautiful, and she got a lot of attention, and we had 18 months to 2 years of, they filmed us for like 2 years, and she it's the technical term that floor managers use in a thing called television. She cleans up well for the telly.
Yep.
Floor managers are there to ground the talent when the director's screaming at them blue murder. So the floor manager's there to convey in a considerate and different way that, could you do that slightly differently, please? Anyway, that's television. Excuse me. That's television, darling. That's fascinating, and I'm glad you've reached out, and I hope this helps for people to contact you and get things done. And well, it's getting late here in little old Wiltshire, and I have taken one unbelievably monumental hit here in the last 7 days, so I'm just sort of back with beating hearts, whatever. So with that excitement, just to let people know, I have so have you got any conferences? Are you going to any live events or doing anything finally?
Well, I'm hoping to attend contact in the desert next year. So I'm just waiting on my current girlfriend. She's an experiencer artist.
Excuse me, I don't want to worry you, but I know nobody else is listening, but you never say the word current girlfriend.
Who?
You don't, nobody can hear what we're saying. You don't say current girlfriend. That's,
Oh,
you're not meant to say that. Shh.
yeah.
So I don't know what we
We
were talking about there.
we always hope for the best. Um, but yeah, she's an experiencer, and we were brought together. She was prophesized on her end that she's going to meet up with me, just like I was prophesized meeting the other one. And we got the night prior to our meeting, we got abducted. Everything points to that. And well, that's a
Well,
for
I think
another
that's
time.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And on that note, I should say it's good night from me. You're meant to say it's good night from me.
Let's
Speak.
go. Yeah. Well, have a good night, Miles.
Good.